Okay, so it's question and answer time for the evening, and who has a question? Yeah?
What do you think about other stand-up comedy teachers?
Wow, boy, what do I think of other stand-up comedy teachers? Man, this is kind of where, well, you know, now you're putting me on a bit of a spot here, I gotta say, because I've got some very specific opinions, and so let me approach this. Other stand-up comedy teachers. So here's the distinction that I make for stand-up comedy teachers. I've got several, but the first one is the difference between an opinion-oriented teacher. The next is technique-oriented teachers. Technique-oriented teachers, I am one, and I coined the phrase because I got tired of competing with opinion-oriented teachers and tried to make a distinction between my work and theirs. Technique, I have spent 35 years. When I first started stand-up comedy, I realized there was no fundamentals for teaching stand-up comedy. I mean, zeros, a couple of books, one by Steve Allen, and basically went, well, I kind of did comedy this way, and why don't you try to do it too? Or one person wrote, something about comedy timing is just taking a pause after the punch. Well, that's one part, very complex part of timing, but that's not timing. That's just one part of a larger skill set you need to do for timing and everything. So what I started to do over the 31st, I went, okay, if I'm not going to tell my students what's funny, if I'm not going to use my opinion, I have to have something to take its place. I have to be able to say, oh. So the first thing I did was, well, I taught a joke writing system, the two-list system, and the problem with it was that half the students who already had a joke model in their head could write a whole lot of jokes, and those who didn't have a joke model in their head couldn't write any jokes. So half of them wrote a lot of jokes, and the other half went, I have no idea what you want me to do. And I went, well, how do I explain to people what a joke is? And that was the first question. And so I spent, I don't know, 10 years creating a joke model that now I've destroyed 250 times or more, and now it's stayed steady for like the last 20 years. I can explain any joke. And when I say joke, I mean joke as the single unit for humor. That means a joke within a storyline while you're telling a story. A one-liner joke, a joke from a sitcom, from a movie, from a novel, a clown gag. It doesn't matter. The single unit I call a joke, and they all have the same structure at their very core. And that's where once I learned that, then I could teach what a joke was to other people. Now that's a fundamental. That's because my book has been published in 5 different languages. They have to change the jokes, but they don't change the joke structure because it works in those languages as well. And those cultures, because it's that level of a fundamental. And then I started looking at other things like what are the fundamentals for scene work? And a whole door opened of those, and I've put those in a book. And then for like crowd work, there's a whole lot of technique behind techniques, many techniques about how to talk to an audience and have the techniques that lead to jokes. And how to relate to an audience, and making sure that a principle is the other thing that I teach. A principle, like the most important thing about stand-up comedy, is your relationship with the audience, etc. So, and there are a couple of teachers here in Southern California who teach several techniques, a little bit of technique, and they're all my ex-students. As far as I know, the people who are not my ex-students are strictly over here teaching a couple of minimal techniques, and they're giving assistance in some way and giving their opinion. So, what's my opinion about stand-up comedy teachers? Every teacher will have something that will teach you. It has its use. The question is how much and how long is it going to serve you? Techniques serve you for a lifetime. opinions only last for that one moment of that opinion. What do you do the next time you need help about deciding what you're going to have in your show? And my job is to put you in the corner and go, you make the decision. You have to learn how to make that decision, and you're going to make it wrong certain times, and other times, and then you'll get better and better and better at it. Because you've got some guidelines, you've got some techniques for how to structure a routine. Like BCA, put your B material at the top, C in the middle, and end with your A material. That is a technique that I can teach people to help them guide them when they're putting together a routine. And that's what I'm talking about. And I've got hundreds of those I've uncovered over the years, and I keep trying putting them in books and teaching them. And so my opinion is, do your due diligence with a teacher. Find out their background. Were they a club manager? Were they a comedian for a while, and then, or were they a writer at some time? Were they just a club owner that now everybody listens to? Or have they sat down and really worked at having a very specific curriculum of exactly what they're going to teach you? Because like what I'm proposing here is a technique-oriented, is teaching those techniques. You're teaching the people those in advance so they can apply them, learn them, apply them to their own sense of humor. They can practice and get better at them over time, etc., etc. So they leave with this huge chest of tools that they can practice. So when they get on stage, they're practicing good technique instead of just repeating the opinions of one of the other teachers. Do your due diligence. Find out specifically what they're going to teach you before you make a decision about where you put your money, because it's valuable. It's most of the classes are a good chunk of change, and you're going to want to make sure that you have something that stays with you when you leave the classroom.